Welcome to New Life Live with Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's today's host, Chris Williams.
Welcome. This is Chris Williams, as was just announced, and I'm in studio today with a couple of very remarkable people and excellent therapists / clinicians that I love hanging out with. And I have Marc Cameron. Marc, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be here with you, Chris.
Excellent. And shortly joining us will be Dr. Jill Hubbard. And so tomorrow, Marc, is Thanksgiving.
It is.
Right? So Thanksgiving, like all holidays, come with a certain amount of expectations, right? But the expectations oftentimes do not meet reality.
Correct.
Right?
For a lot of people.
And there could be a big gap between the expectations and the reality. But one of the things that I was really thinking about, as we were talking about on the break here, is that going into Thanksgiving, obviously at the top of our mind is gratitude. But I'll tell you something that in my life blocked gratitude for a really long time was resentment that I was holding on to and a ton of unforgiveness. And so what that resentment and unforgiveness did in me is it clouded my view of the other, especially if those were family members. And so help me understand, what's the tie between being able to enter into forgiveness and then being able to appreciate and all of the gifts of gratitude?
No, I think it's a great question because, oftentimes we're focusing on what we're thankful for, right? But not about what holds us back from being thankful, right? And you know, as you're saying here, bitterness and resentment, they hold us back from being thankful about the things that we appreciate about others. And we need forgiveness. Forgiveness is kind of like the key that unlocks that door, if you want to think of it that way, right? That allows us to go into relationship and then have the freedom that comes along with reconciliation.
Yeah, that's really good. Because the other thing, too, is that when we're talking about family, especially if we're talking about these people who hold titles like mom or dad, and there is bitterness and resentment in there, Jill, going into the holidays, what are we going to do with that?
Well, it's really hard, and this is where a little grace comes in. But we have to, I think, ask ourselves, when we hold on to these things, what are we getting from that? Why do we hold on to them for dear life? Sometimes that's our only connection to this person, is our resentment, bitterness, and hurt, right?
That's
and
really
so
good.
to let go of that, what would there be in the relationship? Right? And so what are the things? A lot of times it's, if I don't hold on to it, nobody will know. It'll be forgotten.
Yeah.
The little child in me will not be represented.
I will be invisible.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's so good, Jill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's reasons why we hold on to it and why we don't automatically forgive.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if you're struggling with this, and this is something that's really holding you back, you know, Dr. Hubbard did write a book, and it's, you know, she won't plug it, I will. So forgiving, co-authored, yes. So forgiving our fathers and mothers, right? And so this is, if you're struggling with bitterness in that, please enter into the work, and this is a great resource for you. Also, if you contribute anything in the month of November, and you partner with us in some sort of financial gift, we're going to send you a copy of Henry Cloud's book, Trust. And if you want two powerhouses, you go with trust and forgiveness, your life, it will move the needle in a really, really positive direction. We're going to go to break now. We're going to come back and take your calls. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, this is Steve Arterburn from New Life Live, and Chris Williams and I are doing the Emotional Freedom Workshop. I don't know of anybody that wouldn't benefit from emotional freedom. We're all bound or stuck or struggling in some area. What are we going to do there, Chris?
Just really help people get clarity around the places where they're stuck in their life. They sort of circle the same mountain of disappointment over and over and over again. You're going to be able to see that mountain clearly and get to a new place of what we call emotional freedom, which is simply I can feel in the world, build a relationship to it, and know what to do with my experiences.
The New Life Emotional Freedom Online Workshop is Saturday, December 2nd. Steve Arterburn, Chris Williams, and Dr. Jackie McHarris will present information on trauma, depression, codependency, and more. And small group leaders will help you process the information you learn. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 or register online at newlife.com. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. Again, Chris Williams here, Dr. Jill Hubbard, Marc Cameron, and we're here to take your calls. And we're going to go to John in San Leandro, California. And new listener, so John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm doing well. Hey, how can we help you out?
Yeah, so I am a former Christian. I stopped believing because I examined the reasons why I believed, and they were not good or convincing reasons.
They weren't sufficient, right?
They weren't sufficient to warrant belief.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is there a reason that is good enough to believe not just in a God, I guess, but in a Christian God? Because I don't know what that would be.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal question. You called a primarily counseling show with a deep theological and philosophical question. I'm gonna take a shot at it here because, John, I can only speak for myself, and I'm gonna be real honest. There's a lot of ways in which I believe that my faith is both audacious and at times ridiculous. If I'm going to be honest with myself, honest for the reasoning of it all, the question for me hits at home, actually speaking to a particular incident, which I think is what when we call apologetics, kind of like the defense of the faith. But just for me, and I'm not here to speak for anyone else, but there's this line where this guy is in Scripture, in the Gospels and Gospel of John. This guy was born blind. And he has this healing experience, and he's starting to get questioned, about who did this and why did they do it and what happened and were you really blind and who caused the blindness, all of these sort of things. And after this line of interrogation, the man simply replies, "I don't know. All I do know is that I was blind and now I see." For myself, it's like, how do I believe in this Christian God? Is that I know what my life looks like apart from it, and I know what it looks like with it. And those are two very different experiences. And I'm telling you, with it doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I don't suffer. It doesn't mean that life is figured out. I just know that those are two very radical different experiences for me. And I'm choosing the better one for me, and that's life with God.
Okay.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that same logic applied to a person who, let's say, changes religion or gives up religion, and on that day they have the best day of their life?
For sure.
And then they go on to have good experiences outside of the religion.
Mm-hmm.
That same logic is not universal. It's strictly for you.
Yeah, that's why I say it was,
I mean, anyone can believe for whatever reason makes sense to them, and that's fine. But, that's not convincing to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're needing someone to convince you, I mean, there are certainly a lot of people who were atheists or didn't believe in God, and then searched the evidence, searched the history, and, have made claims that, they couldn't deny Christ once they really dug into it. The fact that he lived, he walked, he did what he said he was going to do, and he rose from the dead. Not many people can make that claim. And so part of it is, do you just deny history, right?
Yeah.
In terms of faith.
I don't think that you can necessarily claim that the Bible is a historical account, because that's begging the question, isn't it? You're saying that he's God because of the things he did as God, because of what the book that claims he's God says, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you could find like a contemporary scholar who was not associated with the Christian church or the development of it, who said this is this crazy thing that happened, this guy who was dead rose from the grave, but we don't have that. Like there are no claims that verify the extraordinary events of the Bible outside of the Bible from contemporary scholars.
But we do from historical scholars like Josephus.
Okay, but when did Josephus live?
Like right around the time of Jesus.
Wasn't it like 300 years after?
Well, some of his writings that were revised, but yes, I mean, it's as close as you can get. I mean, there's as much evidence, historical evidence, that Jesus lived that Julius Caesar lived, historically speaking, with proximity.
I love that you're asking the question, John, because I think actually every Christian needs to ask that question.
Mm-hmm. That's good,
right?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're asking the question shows that there's a wondering in you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's also looking to, well, where does that wondering come from?
Yeah.
Right? Is that a prompt? I don't know if you've ever read the book Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And I think it's a fantastic book because it's really... He doesn't address really kind of historical evidence. Mm-hmm. He addresses philosophical reasoning. And it sounds like you're kind of a very philosophical person. And so if you haven't read that book, I think it'd be a great book for you to kind of read and ponder. And, maybe it will answer your questions, or maybe it will give you different questions that you come up with. But I highly, highly recommend that book. I think it's a fantastic book.
And he had kind of a similar journey. He
Correct.
was raised in the church and then left it, right?
Yeah.
And went into academia and was very intellectual.
Right,
Yeah.
yes. Oxford and Cambridge, I believe he went to one and taught the other. Very, very intellectual person, was an atheist, and he wrestled with this stuff himself, and it was, his philosophical reasoning that
Right, because it wasn't a big emotional, conversion kind of thing, right? It was through his reasoning.
It's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I honor you for asking the question and wrestling with it. And I believe that wrestle is important. And to Marc's comment, it's like, I think it's important and necessary, because as scary as it can be for a believer, it can also deepen us.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And John, I believe you're on a real honest journey. I'm going to take a risk here, and ask that, obviously you can take it or leave it, but I actually think you're asking a heart question in your head, and it can only be answered in your heart. And so what I would encourage in this process is just that. I don't know if there's going to be a reason that's going to be sufficient enough for you.
Yeah.
I hope there is.
Well,
but
our intellect gets in the way.
For sure.
For sure.
Can I butt in?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go for it, man.
Because you're off the mark here, and I can explain why. I grew up in a Christian church, and I liked the sermons. I liked reading from the Bible. I liked knowing what the book said. I never enjoyed worship. I never enjoyed standing up and singing or like praying or any of that. Well, I did like praying, but only by myself, not in public. And I felt like there was no feeling associated with being Christian. Like there was just nothing there as far as feelings. It was always an intellectual pursuit for me, despite how many years I spent begging in prayer that I have an emotional experience. It never happened for 20 years. 23 years, actually. And if you're going to say that you think I'm missing the emotional aspect, that's true, but the idea that it will come, like some revelation will come through an emotional thing, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It just rings hollow for me.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And you're right. Lots of people are looking for kind of something supernatural for God to do. And that's not always how he appeals to us.
Absolutely.
Right?
And John, I honestly, I don't know if, as three counselors here can answer all of that. But I will say this, that your experience of a lack of emotional connection, it really is heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would appeal for that for you.
Well, and I wonder, do you have it with people, John? Or is this universal for you?
I know for a fact that I have a diminished emotional connection to people as well.
Because usually our relationship with God is also reflected in horizontal relationships.
For sure. John, what my only encouragement for you today, hopefully it's not the only one, but it would be this. It's like this idea of love, which is universal. Obviously we claim it as Christians, but it's a universal experience. Is to cultivate, to see what is in there, in this deeper connection to myself and to other people around me, and to see if there's more I can do to awaken my emotional life.
With people first. Like I would explore Mere Christianity or The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Do your intellectual digging. But relationally, look at, why do I not have emotion with the people here before me that I think I care about.
Yes.
And work on that. And I think that will then also inform the other.
And oftentimes, talking about historical here, right, we find some of those answers in our own history, right, in the families that we grow up in. So I'd also recommend How We Love. I think that would be a good book to maybe look at, to see how you were shaped that's causing you to feel disconnected from others.
Absolutely. So, John, we're going to send you that book. We're going to send you a copy of How We Love. We thank you for your journey, your honesty, calling into the show, taking the risk that you did. And we do hope that you do discover a richer, deeper emotional life and emotional connection to other people. And obviously, with our perspective and with our bent, we hope that you can rediscover that in God. Thank you so much for calling in, John. And with that, we're going to go to another caller. We're going to go to Jay, listening in Wilmington, Delaware, online. Jay, are you there? Jay? Did we lose it?
Hello?
Oh, is Jay,
Hello?
Is this Jay?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries whatsoever. Jay, how are you doing today?
Oh, I've been better.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Well, tell us what's going on.
I don't know what to do. I suffer from anxiety and depression. I've been in counseling. I'm 60 years old and been in counseling on and off since I was probably in my early 30s. And nobody ever really touched family of origin work until not that long ago.
Really?
I'm like, wow. What have they been doing?
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know where some of these people have taken me, but it didn't go back to family of origin. So not that long ago, I had someone that I was with, and they have long since retired, and so I haven't been able to find someone, and I have a hard time with sermons. I have a hard time going to church. I haven't been in church for years. COVID kind of squashed me a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to know, am I supposed to find, I don't know how to find a therapist. I don't know how to screen them. I don't know if I need a coach. I've done medicine. I've had bad reactions to medicine. I've done no medicine. So I keep having bad reactions. Haven't found one yet, but I feel like that too is a Band-Aid because this has been going on and off for many years.
Well, can I ask, do you have family members who also struggle with anxiety and depression?
Yes. Yeah.
Like parents, Siblings?
My mother suffers from mental illness.
Yeah.
She was sick since I was a little girl, on and off.
Yeah. Well, Jay, you may hear the music right now. We're gonna head to a break here in a moment, and we'll come back and we'll take a little bit deeper dive and send you in a really good direction with what you're experiencing. Speaking of this emotional life that we get really, really kind of caught up in, and sometimes in painful and negative cycles and trends, that's why the Emotional Freedom Workshop exists. It exists for you. If you're struggling with patterns of struggle, patterns of anger, hurt, frustration, and keep bumping up against it over and over, join us December 2nd online, the Emotional Freedom Workshop. We'll be right back.
Before coming to this weekend, I have been dealing with the guilt and shame of an abortion that I had 20 years ago. And we have 3 awesome kids. But every time I kept getting close to the Lord, kids saying to me, "You're the best mom." That voice in the back said, "You're a horrible mother. Look what you did to that child. You killed somebody. You don't deserve any of this, and you're not worthy." To help free me from my guilt and see that I would not make the same decision today, I would make a different decision, and I am a great mom, and God can use me.
This is Steve Arterburn, and this is the story of a new life. After 20 years of guilt and shame, she attended a workshop and now is free. You can be part of offering hope to others as you step out in faith by donating to New Life Ministries.
To make your tax-deductible gift, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit newlife.com and click Donate. Chris Williams on coaching.
Oftentimes I get asked, what is the difference between therapy and coaching? The biggest difference between the two is that a therapist is going to be looking for a diagnosable mental health condition, whereas a coach is going to look at a particular issue and help a person work through that.
If you need a coach, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been trained and screened with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
If you're looking at an issue in your life that you just kind of want to change, whether it be your weight or leadership or other areas of behavioral patterns, check out coaching. There can be some really, really helpful things for you.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 and talk to us about getting a New Life coach. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. This is Chris Williams. Have Dr. Jill Hubbard, Marc Cameron in studio today. We are talking with Jay in Wilmington, Delaware. And Jay has a unfortunately common experience, and that is a stubborn, sticky, and painful historical experience of anxiety and depression. And we're kind of getting into some of the family history. Mom struggled with mental illness as well.
Well, and of course, as a child, if your mother is struggling with mental illness and she's unstable, excuse me, and you never know quite what you're going to get.
Yes, yeah.
You're going to be anxious. You're a child,
yeah,
right? This is a person you're supposed to be depending on. You're going to be anxious, overwhelmed, which then can go into depression.
Yes.
Are you with us, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but the question for us today is like, you've been in therapy for a really long time, tried some medication, and like, is the question for us today, now what?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like, now what? I can't, I'm not very good at reading things, and like, I have a really hard time with reading the Bible. I always feel when I'm in this place, I'm not always here. This is not a lifelong thing. And maybe if it was, maybe I could deal with it better. But I know what it's like to be free of it, and I don't know which way to go to get out.
Yeah, it's really tough.
So I I want to know in the dark. I want to believe in the dark what I know to be true in the light.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. It's well said.
It's irrational.
Yes.
A lot of the times it's irrational, and I know it's irrational. I can't make my head do what I want it to do.
I know.
Can't shut it off.
Jay, I want you to be able to feel, as painful as it is, feel what you're feeling right now. Because my guess is that what has happened to you is also irrational.
Right.
What has happened to you also doesn't make sense. Right?
It's confusing.
No.
And what's happened to you has happened in the dark. So it will only make sense that the darkness comes with confusion and that which doesn't make sense and that which is irrational. And that's a really real, if I can be redundant, that's a real lived experience that needs to be honored.
Right. So, Jay, it's really important that when you are feeling overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, that isn't a time to make any major decisions about your life.
I know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. Yes. Okay. So also when you're feeling those things, you're tapping into the younger feelings where there was nobody big to help you. And so that's where counseling can come in and be really helpful because it's somebody big in the room where you're safe enough to feel the feelings and explore them and be able to look at them through new eyes over time. And so you said that someone recently pointed out family of origin issues. So I don't know, but then you also said you need help finding a counselor.
Yeah.
We can certainly help you find a counselor. We can hook you up that way. But if you've, already found someone that is helping you in that, then I would say continue to go.
Yeah. Yeah, commit to it.
Commit to a season.
It can take longer than you want it to, but stay with it if it's working.
Yeah, and Jill, you're going the direction that I was going to go in here where you're talking about somebody being big in the room.
Right.
And so that's what I would say, Jay, don't do, I would recommend for you to go in person rather than doing Zoom,
absolutely.
right?
Good,
and
yeah.
so it is good. I think there are questions that you can ask of a counselor as to their approach that they take, right? And you can figure out if they take a family of origin approach. But also what you need is you need that person's presence,
Yes.
right? You need somebody to be able to help contain you when you're feeling low and you're feeling down. And what we know is that something that we call therapeutic alliance is one of the strongest predictors of the outcomes of therapy being successful. So don't just look for, somebody who takes that attachment-based approach or a historical approach. Also find somebody who you feel like you can connect with and that they're big enough and strong enough to be able to contain you in your dysregulation.
Yeah, that's really good. Jay, what we're going to do two things. We're going to send you the Emotional Freedom Workbook, and we're going to get you to the Emotional Freedom Workshop. So I am taking liberty here and going to give you a scholarship to the Emotional Freedom Workshop because I really, really believe that could be another one of those things that we know that a day doesn't cure you, but man, it opens up some incredibly powerful doors and pathways. What I like to say about it is it provides crystal clarity to what I'm struggling with and what my next step of needs are for my continued healing and growth. Again, Emotional Freedom Workshop is December 2nd online. Also, I want to mention this, that Every Man's Battle, last one of the year, is in Dallas, December 1st through the 3rd. If you're a guy and you have struggled with sexual acting out, pornography, affairs, lust, all of those things that go along with it, and it has hijacked your life, do not let 2022 end. Three, sorry, whatever year we're in, right? ADHD time, right?
Yes.
Do not let 2023 end and go into 2024 without addressing this. Again, you can find it online by going to www.newlife.com or calling us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE to sign up today for Every Man's Battle. Again, I want to implore you, encourage you, do everything I can to get you there because it is a big, big difference maker. We'll be back right after this.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit its addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. Thank you for being with us today. And we're going to jump right back to the phone lines. We're going to go to Yvette in Landham, Maryland, listening on WAVA, one of our favorite stations out there, WAVA. So, Yvette, how you doing?
Hi, I am well, thank you.
Excellent. How can we help you today?
Well, I was listening to another show you guys had done on talking to a lady who called up about her ADHD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I kept saying, oh, that's me. Mm-hmm. When she kept saying all those things, it's like, that's me.
Yeah, and you thought it was just you.
Yeah, and well, no, I know it's not just me, but it's like because my grandkids were diagnosed with it and my daughter, but I just never, I didn't take it to me. I kept putting me aside and just focusing what they had and whatever, and fix this and do whatever. And I've called the show before, and you guys keep saying, you got to work on yourself. You got to focus on yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I've been doing a lot of that. And so when I heard the caller specify all those things, I guess I've been coming out of the muddy water and getting into clearer water so that I'm seeing myself more clearly. I've dealt with all the shame and all the things that have kept me underwater and kept me in the mud. But now that I've let go of those things and I'm able to look at myself objectively and say, okay, what do I need to do about this? When I heard her, it's probably the first time that I have embraced the fact that I probably have ADHD and I've had these behaviors all my life, but as you said, ADHD brains do well at compensating.
Yes.
And so I am 71 years old, and I'm looking back and saying, how did I manage work? And I had a lot of difficulties at work, and now that the muddy water is clearing, it's probably the first time that I said to myself, Yvette, you, I think, have ADHD.
Yeah.
But instead of beating myself up, which is what I usually would have done in the past,
Yes.
my question was, I took lots of notes. And so I was writing out my notes, and I got up to one of the things you guys had said was that we have to establish structure in our lives. And I'm retired now, and yes, I love the creative, and that piece of me has been coming out a whole lot lately, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But I do have schedules that I need to establish some structure.
Yeah, Yvette.
So
yeah,
how?
let me. Oh, yeah, yeah. Great question.
Wait, what was that part?
How does she establish structure? Yeah.
That's what I want to know. How? What's the best way for an ADHD brain? Because yes, I know you set up the schedules and I have timers, I have alarms, everything that I have to do has an alarm.
Yeah.
And I've even written down what I'm to do with
so
that
Yvette, let me jump in for time reasons. Hey.
Yeah.
We don't cure it, we manage it.
Okay.
We do not hear me out. Hear me out. Hold on. Yes. Hear me out. Yeah. I want you to hear that. We don't cure it, we manage it.
Yes.
Right?
I hear
so we're not looking for timers and schedules to cure us. We're looking at it to do what I call a bump boundary. A bump boundary just kind of is that nudge that says, "Hey, here's what needs to be done."
Brings you back to reality.
Yeah, brings us back to reality, gets us out of our head. So it's not that I'm going to live as a person with ADHD a perfectly linear structured life. It's that I have these bumper boundaries that allows some of my bowling balls to hit the pins rather than constantly living in the gutter, living on the sides. And so but with that said, I mean, the analogy or the metaphor breaks down because, we need to live outside of the boundaries simply because that's the way our brain works. But that any gift that we have or any struggle that we have requires management. And so that's what I want to get to here is that changing the expectation.
Right. Having realistic expectations and kind of reviewing what you're needing structure for.
Yes.
Right. And is this you being punitive with yourself or are these more essential things? And I think relational structure is often helpful.
Yes.
Having people that you can externalize with, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's something called bookending where you can call a person and say, okay, for the next hour, I'm doing this. And I've done this with friends before. And then we call each other after the hour's over. Okay, what went right? What didn't go so well? Did we get it done?
Yeah.
So adding a relational piece in, I think often helps. And that's one form of structure that
for sure.
Yeah, I've heard one expert before talk about ADHD rather than being an attention deficit disorder, an intention deficit disorder, right? And so folks who struggle with ADHD, they don't have a lot of internal motivation at times to get things done. That's why they have trouble starting things and following through because it feels boring or distracting.
Well, right. It's based a lot on feeling. They're driven by what they feel like doing.
Right. It's not just distraction. Sometimes it's just like, I don't really feel like doing it, so I don't want to do it. There's no reward for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have two types of motivations, right? We have internal motivation, we have external motivation. And when you have a lack of internal motivation, you got to build in external motivation. And so sometimes what you got to do is you've got to build in a positive reinforcement, and sometimes you got to build in a negative reinforcement. And I know that's not popular, but sometimes that's the way it sticks for us to form an association to build a new neural pathway. So that could be like, if I don't get this done, I don't get to watch my favorite TV show. It could be just something simple like that.
Right.
So there's multiple ways to address and manage ADHD. These are just a few of them.
Well, and Yvette, I want to encourage you that part of the process is finding out what works for us and finding out what doesn't work for us. How this condition activates in me is going to be different than Jill.
Right.
And so Jill and I each in our own ways need to explore some options and ultimately find out what works, adjusting our expectations. I have to do this all the time. I expect way more out of me than what my brain will allow me to accomplish. And so you said something I think really important, Jill. We can't beat ourselves up for that.
No.
We do,
right.
but it's not helpful.
Right.
Yeah. So, go ahead,
right.
Jill.
Well, and another thing is just, part of structure is creating habits. You talked about new neural pathways, creating habits, right? Like a person who loses things a lot. Find a home for everything and always take that extra step to put things back in that home, right?
That's good,
I have a hook for my keys.
Yes.
They are always
Yes.
on that hook, right? And so I have places. Now, if people move things, then I'm lost, right? But I have certain places for everything, and I always put them back
Right,
there.
and then build other things in, right? My wife has one of those Apple key tags, right? So when she loses her keys, she can find them. And she has 2 sets of keys. So that if she loses one, she has the other one.
That's good.
Right.
That's really good. Yvette, we're going to send you a copy of Understanding and Loving a Person with ADHD. Because again, and I would also encourage you, if you haven't been formally diagnosed by an expert in this area, make sure you get a formal diagnosis. Because.
But I love that at 71, well, first of all, you've been able to compensate all this time, which is amazing. But I love that you're willing to discover new things about yourself, which is wonderful. That keeps you young and growing, and that's what we all need to do.
For sure. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Yvette. We're actually going to jump in. We're going to try to get to Tony here. We're real quickly, see if we can get a question that we can answer for him. Tony, listening in Boston, Massachusetts, on WEZE. Tony, you're there.
Yes, thank you very much, folks. I love your show and really appreciate everything you do for all the folks who call.
Excellent. Well, what's the question for us today? How can we help you?
Well, it's a big picture and a small picture question. My wife and I, we have 2 beautiful adopted children. They're adults now, 21 and 27, and they all have their little issues. And the main issue right now is my son who lives with his girlfriend, fiance, getting married in a year, and both my wife and I see that he's financially and immature in a whole bunch of things, and jobs come and go, and they have health insurance not, and that leads to a lot of stress from our side.
So Tony, let me jump in real quickly. You hear the music. So he's having a really, really difficult time adulting. And so...
Well, we're the ones having the health insurance.
Well, yeah. Well, he might not be.
He's okay with it, right?
Yeah. So we're going to head to a break here, Tony. But I want you to think of what is the question that you have for us that we can answer for you. We'll be right back right after this.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are.
I have given to New Life regularly because I have so many people that I am referring to New Life who so benefit from the ministry. I just can't imagine what would happen in my area if New Life wasn't available to us.
You can help New Life Live stay on the air by joining Club New Life today. When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, we'll send you the new member thank you gift of all 8 100-day devotionals, including 100 Days of Prayer, 100 Days of Freedom from Depression, and 100 Days of Peace. There are also ongoing benefits like the monthly Club New Life CD or download, access to the Club New Life video library, quarterly resources, free shipping on purchased resources, discounts on workshops, and quarterly online meetings with Steve. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Support Club New Life, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life. This is Chris Williams. I have Jill Hubbard. I have Marc Cameron. And we also have Tony. And Tony has an adult child, not really a child anymore, but an adult son who's having a difficulty adulting.
Who's about to get married.
Mm-hmm. And so, Tony, what's the question for us?
Well, the questions I have, and there are several, is first, we did try a counselor for him, had a few years, and so I was wondering, is it okay to try to get him to talk to a counselor via Zoom, and also a counselor for my wife and I, because we're obviously having issues about control, letting how can we help, and it frustrates my wife really to the nth degree. So we both need some counseling, and in the Northeast there, we've had one before.
Yeah.
My wife and that didn't work out pretty good. Is a Zoom set up for something like that?
Okay, so
acceptable? And the second question is, I've tried to get them to sit down with us, his fiance himself, and there's always a reason that they're both not there. So I'm trying to get some sort of intervention to discuss the issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I really can't succeed there, am I out of bounds in trying to discuss this with my fiance's parents?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so... Yeah.
So discussing what? Their lack of financial maturity?
Yes.
Health insurance, etc.?
Yes, and make sure that... I don't even know if my son's fiance...
Yeah, so let...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Tony, and is this the 27-year-old?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think we need to send Jim Burns' book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children.
Yes.
Because, Tony, your son lives outside of your home, right? He's living with his fiance. They're going to get married. What are they requiring of you?
Well, we agreed a year or so ago to help with the wedding, a third. So we have committed to that, and we have no problem doing that.
Okay, but are you helping him month to month, financially?
Sometimes yes, not on a regular scheduled basis.
Okay.
But I do pay for his car insurance if the car needs a new tire.
Okay. Tony, I think some of those things, your son's about to get married, need to be handed back to your son. Right?
And
because he's not going to... People step up when they have to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great to help out here and there. But on an ongoing basis, aren't you keeping them dependent? Because if you're mature enough to get married, then you're supposed to take on your own life.
Yeah, so Tony, I think the question really is, what does it feel like for you to watch from the sidelines and not jump in?
Oh, it's very difficult, and even I gotta tell you, it's worse for my wife.
Yes, that's the hard part.
But I think that's really where your area of growth is, because what Jill is saying...
So that's why I asked, we need a counselor too.
I agree.
Yes, I think so. I think it's more about you guys, identifying the discomfort and the conflict pattern that happens with you guys than it is about trying to have an intervention for your son and help him learn how to be an adult. At this point, I think it's time for him to have experience, right? And the consequences of what happens when he doesn't follow through, be the teacher for him rather than mom and dad jumping in and telling him what he should and shouldn't do.
Right. You could, as a wedding gift, give him Dave Ramsey's course where couples can go for 6 weeks and learn about finances. That's a great wedding gift. It costs, I think, $99.
And Tony, so I think...
Great suggestion.
Yeah, so, but I think you're spot on in what you've heard from these two incredibly wise people, and that's this: your son doesn't have a problem. Did you hear that?
Yes, my wife and I have the
Yes, yes,
Ding, ding,
yes,
ding.
yes, yes. So oftentimes, when we solve the wrong problem, even the correct solution is wrong.
Well, and you were talking, Chris, earlier about fear.
Yes, so
that causes us to control.
That's exactly
we're
it.
predicting the worst outcome.
So you and your wife are controlling your son and his wife. And listen, you're probably right. You're probably exactly right. They're going to have some really, really rough realizations ahead of them. But Tony, this is something that you cannot prevent. Oftentimes as parents, what we want to do is we want to prevent the suffering of our children. Also, like you adopted, there could be this other thing inside of us that like we understand their story and we want to keep saving them out of themselves over and over and over again because they're suffering, or maybe they suffered at our hands. Maybe we've made some errors in parenting. Maybe we caused some pain in our own children. And so we're trying to compensate for that.
We feel like we didn't do enough because if we had, they would be further along.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when they get into their adulthood, we can end up trying to compensate for what we felt like we're missing in their childhood. But that will never work. It just won't. Your job is done, and you did a great job. The best that you had with what you had. And so now they must encounter what the rest of us, including yourself, encountered, and that is figuring life out.
By hitting up against boundaries outside of the family home.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong to want to prevent your kids from having pain, right? But pain is often what causes them to
is a great educator
is the educator, right? And so if you prevent them from pain, you actually prevent them from learning the lesson and growing, and you keep them dependent upon you, and the pattern just exacerbates.
And let's write the story one last time for the bailing them out. What happens inside of them is what's called a learned helplessness. It actually is damaging to their own confidence because they haven't been able to build the resiliency to find their own solutions and overcome. And so therefore, it actually exacerbates the problem. So Tony, you're exactly right. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. I want you and your wife to get into marital counseling. We're going to send you 2 books. We're going to send How We Love, and we're also going to send Doing
Life with Your Adult Children.
Thank you. Doing Life with Your Adult Children by Jim Burns. I think these 2 will really help you. And in your therapy, in your couples work, I really want you guys to start addressing your fears, your shame, and the way that shows up as control.
Yeah.
Because once you resolve the fear and the shame, you will no longer have that drive or that need to control. And most importantly, be incredibly disruptive by the poor decisions of other people, right? So, because what we try to do is like, hey, my child, and this is, I think all of us, my child is making some tough decisions and my life is really hurting. I'm hurting inside because of what my child is doing. So if my child does different, then I'll be okay. So we manage ourselves through controlling our children. I'm like, it doesn't really work out in the end. But Tony, thank you so much for calling in. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your work, what you and your wife are doing. We appreciate all of those who contribute to New Life. We cannot do what we do if you do not do what you do, and that is continuing your support for us. Any financial gift here in November, you will get Henry Cloud's book, Trust. And trust me, it is a fantastic, fantastic read. Thank you so much. Have a very, very happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you later.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Hi, thank you for watching New Life Live. You know, New Life Live is a Christian counseling program where we deal with the hard questions about life, relationships, kids, free choice, freedom of will, whatever. It's all right there on New Life Live every day, every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you want to call into the live broadcast, you can find the schedule on newlife.com or click the social media link right below. You can see every episode of New Life Live on the New Life YouTube channel. Watch it with a friend, watch it later. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you'll never miss another episode. So if you want to listen on the go, download the app. The link is right below. And I hope if you need some information, if you want to get some help, you'll call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And I'll see you next time.